So you go, which idea is going to get me down that road? Which idea can I, and you don't know. I mean, that's the thing is, I don't know. You don't know. You have to use your gut.
If you have multiple ideas for a screenplay, what and how do you decide which one you want to write?
Interesting. I feel like we've touched on this before, but it's a good question. And it's both creative and business related.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the common kind of, I guess, the like, I don't know what the right adjective I'm looking for is, but a lot of people would say you should go for the one you're most passionate about.
Sure.
And I'd say that's right about maybe 80% of the time. Unless the thing that you're most passionate about has no chance whatsoever of selling.
Example, Ben. No, I'm joking.
You know my feelings on that. No, I mean, like, honestly, like, I'm most passionate about writing this Star Wars story. Don't write that.
Don't do that. But they might. But they won't. But they won't.
They won't.
Yeah.
You know, the difficulty comes in when you really like multiple ideas, and I think that, you know, it's hard. It's hard. We've found ourselves in multiple types of situations where all of a sudden you're 3/4 of the way through something, even a script, which we were 3/4 of the way through a script. All of a sudden we had a shiny new fun idea and literally dropped a project completely because we were excited more about the new idea. Actually, we'd finished that draft. We had notes, and then we just decided never to do the notes, which probably wasn't the best decision at the time.
No, it was not the best decision.
And
then we only got 3/4 of the way through the next script.
Yeah, and I think, and sometimes your passion can be misguided because you're excited by one part of the idea, and you haven't really dug deep enough to know if that idea can hold water. And so you have to be careful about that too. But let's say you've done enough work, at least brain work, to go, I have 2 ideas. Sometimes we've had like 4 that we like, we'll list them in like pros and cons for each idea. If you hear baby crying behind me, it's because for some reason my 7-week-old happens to be right outside my door. So I apologize for that. The thing is that you have to look at both sides. I think you have to look at what is good from a market standpoint. And when I say market standpoint, I don't mean like trying to guess the market or trying to say what's the current trend.
But salability.
But salability, and that's very hard to say what is sellable. But I do think there are certain things, and we know that we look for, like, is it, how fresh of an idea?
How fresh is it? Is it a clean concept?
Is it clean? Is it the kind of thing that a studio makes, or is it a kind of thing that an independent company makes? Is it the kind of thing that we've seen 10 times done recently?
Is it package dependent or is it concept dependent? Not that you still don't need a package, but
like a phrase that I coined this morning.
Yes, completely.
Package dependent or concept dependent.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and to follow that up, I do feel like even non-package dependent movies of 10 years ago feel more package dependent today than they used to be. But there are, you know, depending on the size of the movie, the package may not be as necessary, or different types of packaging elements.
Different types of packaging elements, yeah, for sure.
And it also depends on the stage you're in your career. I think that has a lot to do with it. If you're at a place where maybe you haven't broken in yet, maybe you haven't never sold anything yet, I think the decision that you also have to take into consideration, and this is something that we have absolutely talked about in the past, is what do you want your brand to be? If your two ideas are completely different, one's a romantic comedy that you think is great, and one's a horror movie that you think is great.
Completely.
Who do you want to be known as a writer at the beginning of your career?
Sure.
That is, I think, an important consideration to take in. You know, if you're someone who's a little further along, you maybe sold 1 or 2 things, but they haven't been big movies. What is your goal for the next thing? Are you looking to sell another small independent movie to try and kind of inch your way forward? Are you looking to stretch yourself and see if maybe you can get a bigger studio movie made through packaging? I think there's, you know, depending on, there are career elements to making those choices.
Sure.
Because as we know, writing a movie takes a long fucking time.
Takes a long time. Even if that first draft is, I do it in a week or 2, entirely possible.
Good luck if you're sending that out.
Because you're not sending that.
There's very few writers out there who can do a first draft.
I don't think there's any.
Let's go sell this.
I don't think there's any who actually send out a first draft.
Yeah.
You know, it's
you know,
paper is the first part of a process.
You have to look. Getting a script ready to go to anyone, even if it's just the producer stage of things. It's like a 3-month process.
I think so too.
You know, and then you've got the producer that's going to have notes. If you can land a producer, you might have your reps that have notes. Then if you do land a producer and you do their notes and you attach a director or a star, they will have notes. You're talking about a lot of hours that you're going to put into this project. So every time you make a choice of what story you're going to spend that time on, unless you're just doing it because you want to write it as a hobby and not try and sell it, then, and that's really not who we're doing this podcast for, but the reality is, like, if your intention is to try and sell your work, you have to know that that's a long-term commitment. And so who do you want to be in bed with? What story do you want to be in bed with? And also, can you get it there? After all those hours, after all that time, can you end up making any money off of it?
So I want to talk in vague terms, but specific terms, vaguely specific. About our experience over the last few days. Last week. We came up
telling the world our secrets.
I know, not at all. We had an idea for a film that we really liked, that was simple, you know, concept wise.
Pretty high concept. Very easy to pitch.
And fits in our brand. We liked, excited about it, like would love to write this movie. And would watch this movie, would want to write this movie. Yes. Engaged on all fronts. And then yesterday we had a great idea. Like just a great idea. And we went, and partly we went, because inevitably the question comes up. We actually hadn't started to write. We were outlining.
Yeah, we're still outlining.
And it's been going well. And the difficult work, I think, has been done, which I think is all the kind of front-loaded stuff. And again, the plot's relatively simple.
It's like 75%.
A few nice twists and turns, a few nice character things going on. And that outline's nearly there. But we had this new idea today, and we just went, oh my God, that's so great. And you said it, you were like, it's really tough because now I want to write this one. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of do as well. So, but I think what's interesting about that, we were actually chatting with one of our previous guests, Dave Matalon, and we told him both ideas. And he went, got to be honest, I think the newer one feels slightly more fresh. Those things that you were just talking about right then. Like, not to say that the other one isn't good. It is good. And also he was like, kind of fits in an idea that I was playing around with too. You know, and you go, oh, that's interesting. And again, we never knew this about Dave.
Never.
And you'd written it's not the same, but it absolutely lives in a similar space.
Well, yeah. I mean, going back to a conversation we had not that long ago, He didn't steal our idea. We didn't steal his idea. We
No,
just
but if you were to say,
idea.
Absolutely right. If you were to turn on Netflix and go, "Oh, that's my movie,"
right? Oh, totally.
Yeah. But then the other idea, the new one, the one we had yesterday, he was like, "That's super unique. I've never heard anything like that before.
I know.
It feels really fresh. It feels, and interestingly, it feels a beat more us as well, in certain ways."
In certain ways,
it does. It feels more like older Ben and Jake, like from a few years ago, whereas the Princess feels more like.
Well, it's kind of right in the middle of those two, isn't it?
It's right in the middle of those two.
Because I think the new idea is probably more of an R-rated movie, which is definitely newer Ben and Jake.
I agree.
And is smaller and more contained, which is newer Ben and Jake. And yet also plays with some of the stuff that we used to really do a lot of.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
It's so hard. I mean, look, we have to do this topic and decide which movie do we spend the next 3 months to a year to 2. I mean, look, we talked yesterday about a project we're now into 2 years on and writing the 4th or 5th version of. And those are the types of, and thankfully that project still gets us excited and it still has that spark that we talked about. So you go, which idea is going to get me down that road? Which idea can I, and you don't know. I mean, that's the thing is I don't know. You don't know. You have to use your gut. There's no magical, like you can't call up your agent and say, which one can you sell tomorrow? They don't fucking know.
I know they do, and that's the thing. And ultimately, and I think what the thing I like about this new idea is there's a really awesome twist in it that I think I would much rather not pitch it to anyone.
And just say, read
this.
Yeah.
And then afterwards go, so just like the twist on page 50, you know?
Right. That's true. It's true. I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge that you undoubtedly as a writer will face one day.
And also,
because hopefully you've got lots of ideas.
And that's what I was going to say. It's great challenge to have. Oh no, there are several ideas that I really like and want to write.
I mean, here's the thing. We made a list not long ago. We literally made a list and we said, what are we going to do in the new year? And we said, we had said there were 4 ideas that we had chosen to be this is where we're going, because these are ideas that we know we either have a producer that's interested, we have our agents really liked the idea, we've already started down the road of one of them, and there's another, and now there's this new idea that it doesn't apply to any of those things.
Yeah.
And it just all of a sudden comes in and you go, and that wasn't on our list.
And that wasn't on our list, I know. Yeah.
And it's a hard, every time is money. And time is, look, time away from your family, time away from another project, every choice in this way leads you down a path of going, I've just spent however many hours on this thing. Is it going to be worth it? In our particular situation, I actually think that both of our ideas would be worth it, but I think the strategy behind both would be different, and we talked about that as well.
And here's the interesting thing, isn't there? Is we've outlined this first idea, pretty much, and we know what happens in the rest of the movie. We just know what happens in the rest of the movie. We could take that and turn that into a pitch like that.
Yeah,
we could turn that into a treatment in less than a week. Yeah, honestly, and we could turn around and sell that instead. We absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we could sell that just because we did it as a pitch instead of a script, and then don't get around to writing the other one for a while, because that's a really good problem to have.
Oh no, woe is me. Yeah, totally.
Woe is me.
But honestly, in those 3 months it takes for business affairs to work out the deals,
we've probably confused a lot of people. So I want to bring us back to the question that you asked at the beginning, which I think is a good one. And I don't know that there's 100% an answer. So the question is, what advice would we give a writer if they had two ideas and they came to us with two ideas that they said, I'm really passionate about these two ideas. I think they're super fun. One of them I'm down the road with. Another one is brand new, but it's the shiny new object. What do I do?
Yeah.
So what advice would you tell that writer?
So I would mention all the things we've talked about, view it from a salability point. But I think, without saying anything to anyone, say, I've got two ideas for movies. Idea one is the Wishing Well movie. Number two, bringing that one back. Number two, it's the origin of the first leprechaun. Which one are you more interested in? And don't tell them anything else. And kind of let them go, well, I think this one sounds better.
Definitely the origin of the first leprechaun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Hang on, wait.
That's actually not a bad movie. There you go.
And that's how amazing ideas
come. That's how ideas come up.
You just throw them away like
where do leprechauns come from?
Absolutely.
A leprechaun.
But, I think
not a horror movie.
Yeah, right, totally. Yeah. But I think actually there is benefit in that, because when we pitched both these ideas to Dave, even although he did have context, he let us know what he felt. So I think,
but it is just one opinion. Yes, but I will say also, just to caveat that we have a project, and it's this 2-year-old project that we keep talking about very elusively because, quite frankly, we've spent far too much time and effort on it to tell anyone what we're doing until it's ready to go out there. Yeah. But hopefully you'll all know what it is soon enough.
Next year, when it smells big.
But here's what happened. We loved it. We had a draft. We loved it. Our manager loved it. Our agents loved it. Some of our wives loved it. People that we knew and talked to about the idea.
How many wives do you have, Ben?
My wife and one of our producers' wives loved it. Our agent's assistant loved it. Our manager's assistant loved it.
Yeah.
The producer gives it to 4 people that didn't love it. And based on those 4 opinions, everything changed. So I will say that everyone has an opinion. And who knows? Like, we will never know whether that draft could have sold.
Totally. And here's the thing. Let's say you go and present your ideas to 10 people, and 10 people say you should write screenplay B.
That's a good test right there.
But you really, really, in your heart, still want to write screenplay A? Then write screenplay A. Honestly. Because ultimately, like, if you're truly undecided, you're like, you're doing that dance, then yes, go with what people tell you. But if what they tell you isn't actually what you really in your heart of hearts want to do, then I think do that one, because again, it's going to be, what do you love? What are you passionate about?
Well, here's the question then, and I think it's a bigger, broader question. Maybe it's a question for another episode, though. If you have 2 ideas and one of them you're just kind of like okay about, and the other one you really love, should you ever write the first one? Like, how much energy do you put into an idea that you're just kind of like, it's okay?
All I'm really saying is if you have 2 ideas that you feel like you're on the fence about, but then the answer that you get is deep inside you, not the answer that you want, then you already know the answer.
But aren't you then just going back to what I said at the beginning, which is write what you love? I don't know. I don't agree. I just think look, that is a very beautiful, optimistic sentiments
Of
that
course.
I think could leave a lot of people without careers for a very long time. Because you could write what you love forever, and if it doesn't,
but
if it's
also
not
again,
likable, it's not sellable, it's not. I mean,
yeah. I view the term, because when I used to work at Apple, I took the Apple store in the Beverly Center in Los Angeles for years, and we used to get a lot of screenwriters come in there, and we were working towards breaking it in at the time, and I would ask all these people, I say, I'm an aspiring screenwriter, what one bit of advice would you give me? And they always said, write what you love.
I know, and
it's the thing. But here's the thing: the way that I actually interpret that is find something that you love in everything that you're doing. It's kind of like saying write what you know.
Well, that's like it's bullshit. Of course, you're writing what you know.
Write about a British guy in his 40s who lives in Washington and has 2 kids. No, it's find your connection to what this is.
Sure.
And so for me, again, it's the same thing. It's like find something to love in an idea and then write that.
But that's not, I mean, I think that's great, but that's not what you were just saying.
Sure.
Because what you were just saying is, if everyone tells you that option A is going to sell and option B isn't going to sell, but you really love option B, go write option B. And my answer would be, well, if you didn't love option A, why were you even pitching it in the first place?
I know we didn't have 2 separate ideas and we wrote The Princess, but when we pitched that to our manager, he was like, maybe it's a good sample. And we were like, no, we love this. We're going to write it because we loved it.
Not right away. We didn't.
Sure. We gave it a little
right away. We didn't. We actually said, oh, yeah, actually, maybe you're right. And
then we had 2 options, didn't we? Then we had 2 options of screenplays and we sat down. Which one of these do we want to write? We want to write this one,
and we also were at a very specific, and this is why I was saying before, and then we'll move on. It also depends on where you are in your career, because we knew writing, well, first of all, I didn't agree with our manager. Deep down in my gut, I was like, this is a movie. This is a movie I want to watch, and if I'm an audience for it, somebody else will be too. And that's usually the way that I look at things for the most part. So it doesn't necessarily mean it will sell in the market. His feeling was, I don't know who buys this. Not that it wouldn't be a movie. Fortunately, there was someone who bought it. It's called 20th Century Studios. They made it. But we had an opportunity where we had just come off a paying job. And we said, we know we're not going to, our next paying job isn't going to start for 3+ months. We were waiting on CW to get back to us on a pilot. And we were like, what are we going to write?
Yeah.
And so in that context, we said, and we said this to each other, let's just take a gamble.
Yeah, we did.
Sometimes that's what we do.
Yeah.
But that's not the same as trying to go, I haven't sold anything ever or in a while, and I've got 5 great ideas and I don't know which one to write. There is a different context. And I think that we were actually given this piece of advice we tell people all the time by our joint first manager. We were writing small movies that were
small
genre movies. And he sat us down and he said, what is your aspiration? What kind of movies do you want to write? And we said, well, we'd love to write, Star Wars one day. We'd love to write a Marvel movie one day. We want to write big, fun action adventure movies. And he said, well, why the fuck aren't you writing that?
Sure.
He didn't say, just go write anything. He said, give me those ideas. And then, interestingly enough, the one that we gave him, he passed on. Because he didn't think it was sellable. But then we met a producer who did think it was sellable. We then chose not to write it. We put it away and said, well, he doesn't think it's sellable. We don't want to do it. But then we found a producer who said, no, I think he's wrong. And that was Lawrence Gray. And he said, I actually want to make that movie. So if you guys want to do this, let's do it together. And it was I think the combination of all three things: one, we loved the idea; two, it was the brand that we wanted to create for ourselves; and three, there was somebody in the business who said, yes, I think there's a market for that. It was all that combination of all three things that made that the right project to spend what was the next like 9 months of our lives on.
Yeah, of course, absolutely right. Yeah.
You know.
Good stuff. Well, thanks, Ben. Thanks for clearing up that question for me.
I have no idea if we cleared it up. If you have any questions about that question, which I still have lots of questions about that question, feel free to write them in the comments.